Hello there, David here, and welcome back to my channel for yet another video. Today, we're going to take a look at the Reolink RLC-410 5MP camera. Let's get started. I'd like to thank Reolink for sending a camera for me to play with. It impressed me so much that I ended up purchasing two more for myself. From the specs alone, this camera packs a powerful punch. With a 5MP sensor, which is 2560 by 1920, so it's a 3:4 aspect ratio. It's not widescreen. This just means that you have more pixels in the vertical directions. This camera also plays back streams at up to 25 frames per second. It also features a built-in microphone, which will record any noise in the general vicinity of the camera. Now before I get any further in the video, I want to say that this does not come with a DVR, because this camera is a network camera. It uses power over Ethernet, so the camera gets power and data over one cable. Now for this to work, you also have to have a power over Ethernet switch. I picked up this little switch on Amazon for about $50, and I'll leave a link in the description down below. I purchased a pack of two of these cameras for $67 during a promotion they were having. These sales happen every once in a while, so make sure to check on their website to see if you can get the best deal. If you were to purchase this camera as your first security camera, I want to show you the exact steps you'd have to go through in order to get this running in your home network. This would include the physical installation of the camera, running the Cat5 or Cat6 cable to it, crimping the cable ends, and then hooking everything up. I will also show you guys how to connect this camera to Home Assistant and how to stream the camera to a Chromecast. In mid-November, I connected this camera when we were working on the soffit. This made it easy for me to properly install it and hide all the wiring. We are currently in a very large renovation project in our house. That's why I had the opportunity to hide these wires like this. It's still possible to do this and to run all the wiring in an existing house as well. So here's the wire from the camera running down. I will drill a hole there to hide the wire so it doesn't stick out like that. And then it's going to come down here, and I've already opened up this black board here. I'm going to drill holes down here and drop the wire into the basement down to the PoE switch. Make sure you know exactly where you're drilling before you start drilling. I know exactly where these holes are going to come out of in the basement. After drilling through the two 2x4s at the top, I then had to open up another square in this black board in order to drill through two more 2x4s from the bottom to the top. I was then able to run the cable through the holes that I just drilled, and then run it down behind the wall into the hole I drilled into the basement. The 8-port power over Ethernet switch will sit on top of my existing 48-port network switch. This switch is capable of putting out 120 watts, so it should have no problem powering up to 7 of these cameras, as they only use 10 watts each. You may be wondering, if this switch has 8 ports, why can it only support up to 7 cameras? Well, one of the ports has to be used as an uplink. It means it's got to be connected to an existing router or switch. I bought this crimping kit on Amazon a few months ago for about $20, and it's worth every penny. When crimping these, it's best to look up instructions online, as I'm not an expert and I've only done a few of these myself. This kit also includes this very handy tester. I then connected the tester to the long cable that I created, and connected the other end to the end that plugs into the camera. And with this final connection, the camera is now ready to be tested. Once the camera has been connected to your network, open up the Reolink app on your mobile device. And the first time I did this, I was greeted with this exact screen. Right away, I saw the camera that I had already connected. There was nothing that I had to do. It was already there. A lot of these mobile apps are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go through the details of how to do every little thing. You guys can figure this out on your own. The one thing I do want to look up is the IP address of the camera so that I can copy its RTSP URL and paste it into Home Assistant. So by clicking this gear at the top right, and then clicking on the camera at the top, then the network info, and here I'm greeted with the IP. It is 192.168.1.73. The same settings can also be accessed from any web browser. So if I go into Chrome and go into this URL, the default username is admin and the default password is password. Okay, so if you want to view the preview, you can get Adobe Flash Player. But not anymore. Adobe Flash Player is no longer available in 2021. So if you want to view this camera on your computer and you have Home Assistant installed, you can do so. For this specific camera, this is the RTSP URL. This URL is made up of multiple sections, the first of which is your username for the camera, followed by your password, at the IP address of your camera. And then you have to include this section at the end. Now, in order to add this camera to Home Assistant, we have to use the generic platform. For me, the name of this camera is Driveway, and the still image URL can be any kind of URL. This camera doesn't support JPEG stills, so I just included a Wyze camera URL that I had. For the stream source, this is where we're going to paste the RTSP URL of this camera. Save changes, and then restart Home Assistant. After Home Assistant restarts, we can now add the camera to a page. Edit dashboard, add a card. We are going to add a picture entity. And the entity we're going to choose is the driveway camera. So in my case, it's called camera.driveway. For the camera view, I'm going to set it to live. Click save. So now when I click the camera here, I get a full screen preview. And if I want to actually make it full screen, I can do so here. Now if I wanted to cast this to a TV, if I had a Chromecast for example, I could right click on the screen and click cast. But that's annoying to do so every time. So what we can do is make an automation to do this. Now before you can even stream cameras to Chromecast, you have to enable the stream component. Simply add this to your configuration, save, and restart Home Assistant. So I created a simple automation called Play Camera. And all this automation does is it calls a service called camera.play_stream, and the entity I'm streaming is camera.driveway. The media player I'm playing this to is mediaplayer.basementtv. So now when I execute this automation, the camera starts streaming on the Chromecast in the basement. And when you stream through the Chromecast, you can also hear the audio of the camera. I want to make an easier way to execute this without going to the automation every time. We can do that by changing the hold action of this camera. So we're going to go and edit the dashboard. We're going to edit this. And we're going to change what the hold action does. We're going to call a service called automation.trigger. Then we're going to go to the code editor. And here's what you're going to fill in. When we click and hold this picture, we're going to call a service called automation.trigger. This is the specific automation that we're going to trigger, the one that we just created a few minutes ago. Now make sure that this formatting is exactly like this or else it won't work. So now when I click and hold this picture, the camera starts streaming on the TV. And finally, here are a few video and audio samples recorded to the SD card in the camera. Overall, this camera gets a big thumbs up. Since I still have free ports in my PoE switch, I will most likely purchase more of these cameras and fill those up. If you guys made it this far into the video, thank you very much. Your support is highly appreciated. And as always, I hope you all have a wonderful day.